Okay, good morning Year 10. Today I'm going to run through how to produce your property cards for our Monopoly project. And I'm going to teach you a little skill called artboarding, which is going to make designing and then creating all your property cards quite a lot easier. In order for you to follow this activity, I also suggest that you have your document open that I have posted up last lesson with the information regarding the property cards, because you'll be using the template that you can see on the screen now, along with eventually all the information presented for each property to create all the cards. And you can see that there's a bunch of properties that you need to create. What this activity is going to allow you to do is to create your property cards fairly quickly and to ensure that they're all consistent. So rather than having to create, what might be close to 30 cards individually and remember all the settings that you're going to need to do to create them so that they're all exactly the same, this artboarding activity will allow you to do that much more quickly. So we're going to go back to our Photoshop and we're going to create a new file, and we're going to use centimeters to create the property card, and the width of the property card is 5 centimeters, its height is 8 centimeters. So you're just going to make sure that when you establish this project, we're going to call it property cards, and we're going to start with a width of 5 centimeters and a height of 8 centimeters to create that card. Okay, and I'm going to create that, and we've got something that looks like this. Now when I go onto my template design, we're going to try to replicate this slightly, not exactly, because we want to also add our own theme, whatever it might be, to this card as well. So the things that I'm really cognizant of to begin with is having a border around our card, having this square or rectangular shape for our title deed or the name of your property, and then also having all this information here with rent for houses and hotels, and then mortgage value, etc. So all of this information we want to include in our cards. And what we're essentially going to do is we're going to create a template like this so that we can keep reproducing it over and over again to create our cards properly. The only other thing I'll open up is I'll do this in Photoshop. We also want to open up the Monopoly logo, the Monopoly board that we were using last lesson. If I can find where I saved it. Maybe it's on desktop. Let's have a look at the recent. That's the one. Oh no, not that one. Can't find it. That's okay. I'll just open it up again. We want our Monopoly board, because I'm going to need this to, like I showed you this week, select the colors for my board. Okay, so I'll open this one. And then I can open it up as well. There we go. So let's come back to our property card. First thing I want to do is to create a border around my property card. The easiest way to do that is to use my rectangle tool, and I'm going to just produce the border to begin with as such, but I really want to get it accurate. So right now you can see that it has got pixels that are being presented as the measurements for it. So what I can do is I'm going to go into Google and type in centimeter or pixel to centimeter conversion. So if the width of my board is 5, I want it to be 4.5. So I'm going to do 4.5 centimeters, which is 170 pixels for my width. And then 7.5, which is 283. So 283 by 170, I'm going to go 170 by 283. That's not exactly what I want. Let's just do this manually then. So I'm going to create my border like this now. But can you see how it's filled that particular shape in? If you want your rectangle, like your border, to be a different color and you want the inside to be like a blue or something, you can just click on this fill option and select the color, whichever one you might want. Okay. But what I would like is I want to have a stroke, which is the border part, but I want my fill to be empty. Okay, and then my stroke, I'll make it about 3 pixels, just to give it a bit of thickness. And then if you wanted to, you can go and adjust whether you want full lines or dotted lines or whatever it might be. But I want it to be full lines, okay? And then I can work with that. So I'm happy with that right now. And you can see that we've got a border now for our property card. And then I'm going to do the same thing again, but now creating the box for my title deed. Okay. Now this one I do want to be colored. So I'm going to come back to my, I'm going to come back. If you ever make a mistake, Command Z will just undo that. I'm going to come back here and I want to select, using my eyedropper tool, the brown. And when I come back here and I fill this color in, I want it to be that brown that I've just selected. Okay. And we have now got our title deed block. We've got to put 2 bits of text on this. The first bit of text has to be what says title deed. Just make sure your color's going to stand out. So if it's a dark color, use white. If it's a light color, use black. So we've got our title deed. Okay, and then we're going to have to put our title underneath that. So you can, like I said yesterday, if you want to do it in caps, you can. If you want to do it in both large and small letters, you can. All we want to have is consistency. So straight away, I think that's a little bit too big. So I'm going to bring it down to a 9 font, maybe even an 8. And also make the font whatever you like based on what your theme is. Okay, so it doesn't have to be exactly the same as Monopoly. Okay, so whatever you want to use, you can use. So let's just go with that. Now I'm going to bring that, make sure it's your text, and you can't even see the layers on this, so we probably need to do that. Now I'm going to bring my text, which says title deed, make sure you're selecting that, and then I can move that into the middle. Okay. And then what I want to do is add another bit of text, which is going to be a little bit larger, that says property title. And again, I want this to be larger because this is going to be the name of said property. So let's make that, let's try 15, see how big that looks. And you want it to fit into the actual box still. So 15 is a little bit too big. Let's try 13. Okay. And now that fits nicely into this space. So you can see that we're just taking our time trying to get this right now, because the more correct we get this, the easier it's going to be for us at the end. Okay, so I'm just moving that into the middle. I'm really happy with that. All right, so now we want to start putting in our other bits of information. So we need to add rent with a money sign in the middle, and then we can do rent with 1 house, 2 houses, 3 houses, 4 houses. Okay, so we're going to try to do the same thing there. And we're going to type in rent. We've got to change the color to black because now we're on a white background. And we're going to put the money icon. And then we're going to do with 1 house. With 2 houses. With 3 houses. None of them are with 4 houses. Some of them are with 4. Yeah, okay, with 4 houses and then with a hotel. Okay. With 4 houses. And then the rent one, we're going to put that in the middle. Oh, that's not what I want. So what I'm going to do is actually get rid of this one because it's going to be formatted slightly differently. So let's just do with the houses together. Okay. And I'm going to just bring that here for now. I'm going to do the rent one again. And this will make sense in a second why I'm doing this. And then I'm going to do hotel. And we can format this at the end. But we want to get the with hotel and then mortgage value. Okay. With hotel. Okay, so now what I want to do is get this. I want to bring this in the middle. I'm going to bring this so it's lined up with that. I want this also to be in the middle. And then we're going to add our last bit of text underneath that as well. So mortgage value. House cost each. Okay. And then we've got hotels, comma, dollars plus 4 houses. So you can see there's quite a lot of information that we're adding to this card. Now, the next thing we want to do, or I want to do, is I want to spread this information out a little bit more to fill up the card as well. So I'm just going to bring everything down. I still want it to stay aligned. And you can see that I'm evening out the spacing of everything. And again, I would say that's probably a little bit too short. So let's just pull that down a little bit. And then bring this down a little bit. Bring that down a little bit. they're the same. Let's try to get this the same. All right, that's a bit better. All right, now everything's aligned. Happy with that? That looks really good. The only other thing you can do, if you hold down Shift and you get these all selected together, now we can just make sure that so that distance looks the same as that. That's going to work for us. Okay, so I've created my template for my card. I'm really happy with that. Okay. Now we're going to start artboarding, which is what I told you at the beginning of the lesson, to make creating these cards as easy as possible. So you can see over here, I have got all the different layers to create this card. Okay. The other thing we could do actually before we move ahead, let's say you wanted to put a theme for your card. You didn't just want it to look like a standard Monopoly card. So I'm just going to find a Xavier College logo. I'm just going to put that on the card, but your theme is obviously going to be different depending on what it is that you're doing. So if I just wanted to take that image, and use it. Okay, I'm not really interested in having the background, so I'm just going to remove the background. I'm just going to have to go through and get rid of this all manually. Okay, I think that's all of the white now. Great, so that's what I want to use as my watermark. And I'm just going to copy that, Command C, bring it across to here and paste it. Now, I'm going to make it a lot smaller because I want it to sit on the card, but I don't want it to be a distraction. So I might have it in the middle. You can do whatever you want really. But let's say I wanted it in the middle. I'm going to line it up properly first. The next thing I need to do is bring that layer down so that it sits behind all my text. And then if I come here to opacity, I'm going to make that just 10% or 15%. So it doesn't actually affect my text as much. And the other thing you really could do if you wanted to, if I click on that text, depends on the text, but sometimes you can bold it. So this one, we can't bold, I don't think. That's fine. Some of your fonts you will be able to. For this one we can't, that's not a problem. I'm just going to make sure that the layer, if I get rid of the fill, it gets rid of some of its luster, and if I get rid of opacity, it just gets rid of some of its, how much it stands out. So I'm just going to you can play around with that yourself, but I just want it to be quite small. And if you wanted to, you could even make it the whole size of the card. You go, be my guest how you would choose to do it. But let's say I wanted to do something like that. If I put it behind the rectangle, now it doesn't affect my title deed. You can play around with what you want to do with your cards, okay? But you can also, I'm just trying to show you that you can add a little bit of a theme to it. It doesn't just have to look like a standard Monopoly card. Okay, so let's say you wanted to do something like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this top layer and scroll all the way down. I'm going to unlock my background and I'm going to hold down Shift and click on the bottom layer. And now you can see it's selected everything. And with that now I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new artboard. And this first artboard I'm going to call brown. Okay, because brown is the first color on my Monopoly board. And you can see all of a sudden that it has created these dots, plus signs. Now if I hold down, I think it is tab. It's not tab, it's going to be option. If I held down option, when I press the plus sign, it creates two of exactly the same thing. Okay, the only thing I then need to do, see I've got this one now called brown copy. I've got brown copy and I've got brown. I can change between those two artboards just by clicking that. Okay, now let's just start by doing that and I'll explain what you're going to be doing in a second. If I don't press option when I click the plus sign, it's just going to create an empty board the same size, okay, a white one. So I need to make sure that I click option, or if you've got a Mac, you're clipping Alt, A-L-T, okay, and it's going, that's what allows you to use the formatting that you've created and continually produce it again. Now, after we have the color brown in our Monopoly board, we have the color blue. So I'm going to get my eyedropper and select that color. Then when I come into what is called brown copy 2, let's open that up. I'm going to go to the rectangle, okay, and I want to change the color of that rectangle to blue. And see how it's changed there. Okay. Then I'll go to the title deed. I'll change the color of that to black. And I'll go to the property title. And I'll change the title of that to black. And now I've got my blue version that's exactly the same as the brown version. We also know, if we look at our Monopoly board, that there are 3 blue properties. So I'm going to hold down option. Okay. Let's close brown copy. So we have to close it in order to use it. Hold down option, I'm going to duplicate that and duplicate that again. Now you will follow this process again and again and again till you create every single property. So you might go back to brown 2, hold down option, create another one. So I'll just do this one more time for you. And after we've got blue, then we've got our magenta. So I click on the color box, I click on magenta, I get magenta, and I bring it back across here. So this is called, I'm just looking up here, that's called brown copy 5. We're going to change the name of these so that it makes a little bit more sense for you in a second. But say I go to brown copy 5, I want to open that up. I want to open that rectangle up and double click it. I want to change the color purple. And like we did before, you just click on the title deed. It brings up this dialog box that you can now change the color to white. Same thing, property value. Click on the color. Going to change it to white. Once you're happy with that, you will close that up, hold down option, and you can produce that again. So let's say you were to do this for all of the Monopoly cards. You can see how much easier it's going to make it for you to produce exactly the same card again and again and again. What you would then do is come back to your document that we've got here. Now you're obviously not going to call your cards the same name that is in this book here, okay? Because you're creating your own names for your properties. But let's just say I was going to copy this for now as an example. So my first property is going to be called Mediterranean Avenue, and my second property is going to be called Baltic Avenue. So once I've got that information, I can come back here and I'm going to zoom in. To my brown ones. Okay. So I want to go to the brown first by itself, which is down here. And I'm going to rename this now. If I right click that, I should be able to rename it. I just got to double click on the name. I'm going to call that now Mediterranean. I don't think I spelled that right. Mediterranean. Avenue. Okay, so this is going to make it a lot easier for me to identify my properties. Okay, so it's now called Mediterranean Avenue. When I open that up, my property title click on the text, click on that. I'm going to change the name of that now to Mediterranean Avenue as well. Now, even if it goes off the page, that's fine, because I'm just going to now pull it in. So that it fits. Okay? And that's done. I then have my information. So I know that rent should be $2, rent with one house. So let's just do this. So we're going to go... Oh, we haven't even put the initial cost. Where's that information supposed to go? I guess that's on the board. So that is on the board. Okay, so now we can start following this information. So we've got to create rent for $2, $10, $30, $90. So let's just start with that. So if we come here now, if we click on the text and then we just click next to it, you don't want it to create a new text box. We want it to create text on that. There we go. So we've got $2. We can close that. Now let's go to, make sure we're constantly clicking on the right layer. So let's click on that. Yeah, $2, $10, $30, 90. 30, 90, 160, and then the hotel, we'll click on that one now. Again, we don't want a separate, if it says Lorem Ipsum, it means it's created a new dialog box. We just want to not use that, and we're going to try to click closer onto the icon so it's the same thing. And the only thing we'll need to do once we add this is recenter based on the new information that we've provided. Okay, so now we're happy with that. And then when we go to the mortgage value is 30, cost of a house is going to be 50. $30, $50. It doesn't tell us this last bit of information here, which is hotels, dollars plus 4 houses. So we can just leave it like that. The only thing we're going to do now is make sure that these new things we've added are going to still be in the center. So we're going to line it up in the middle. Same thing for the rent one. The other two we don't have to worry about because we haven't aligned them in the middle. The rent one we have, the hotel one we have, these have been aligned on the side so they'll fit. So now we've created our first one, Mediterranean Avenue, and you'll do the same thing again for all your other properties. So now if I go to brown copy, I can see that because it's got the name up here. For some reason it's presented up here, that's fine. I can go into that, double click that, and we're going to call that Baltic Avenue. Okay, and you can see the name change here. And then when we go into it, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start with the property title. We're going to change that name, clicking on it. To Baltic Avenue. And we're going to center that straight away. We know it's in the center. Okay, and then we can look at the information. So the same cost, we don't have to worry about that now. We're going to have $4, $20, $60. So the rent is going to be, clicking on the text icon, make sure we're not creating a new text box, $4. You might want to just align that straight away. Coming back, 20, 60, 180. So it's just doubling. Text. 20, 60, 180, 320. For the hotel, 450, 3050. Okay. Hotel. Again, we don't want to have a new dialog box. Let's undo that. 450. Just make sure we're centering it. And then we're going, so I think it's still 3050. Yep. So that bit's the same. So we'll click on this one now, mortgage value. $30.50. And we've created the first two cards for our Monopoly game. Just make sure we've got that done. Okay, and we've got that. The other thing we need to do is we're going to drag them so that they're in order. So now we've got Mediterranean, which is at the bottom, lowest, and we've got Baltic. And then we'll do brown copy 2, 3, and 4. Because they're your blue ones. and you've got 5, 6, 7, and you'll keep going. So the first thing to do is to name your properties based on whatever you're calling it. So just double click on that, and that will allow you to name it whatever you want. Then once you've named it, you can go into it and start editing it based on this document here. Okay, but this activity here called artboarding hopefully makes it a lot easier for you to produce your cards. Okay, there is obviously still a little bit of work with putting the information into those cards once they are done, but we've got it on an artboard. We're going to make sure that we save that. Once you finish everything, save it. You don't want to lose it. Property cards, we're saving it as, and then once we've saved it as a PDF at the end, first you're saving it as a normal doc, okay? But then if you save it as a PDF as well, then we can print it all out at once. But you need to create all of your property cards. Obviously you can see here we've edited the brown, we've created the light blue and the purple or the magenta, but you would be doing that for all the different colors. So you would continue with orange, red, yellow, green, and then your royal blue. So hopefully this video has taught you how to create your property cards using the artboard technique. Okay, I hope it's really made it a lot easier for you, and you can go and produce your own now. So thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.